You're sitting at a red light. The engine's off, not idling low, off. Dead quiet, just the faint hum of the climate fan and the tick of the blinker. The light goes green. You ease onto the pedal, and the car rolls forward on nothing but a soft electric whir, smooth as an elevator. A second or two later, the gas engine wakes up underneath you, quiet and matter of fact, and you merge into traffic without ever feeling a gear change, because there isn't one. And here's the thing, almost nobody in that intersection realizes. If the car next to you is the rival brand doing the exact same silent rollaway, the two of you are getting there in completely different mechanical ways. Not slightly different, fundamentally different. One of those cars has its gas engine bolted to the wheels through a clever little gear trick the whole time. The other one usually has its engine disconnected from the wheels entirely, just sitting there spinning a generator like a tiny power plant. Same result at the curb. Two totally different machines doing it. I've driven both of these systems for years, torn into how they work. Listen to the specific noises each one makes when it thinks no one's paying attention. And I'll be straight with you. The way people argue about Toyota hybrids versus Honda hybrids drives me a little crazy, because they argue about it like it's a reliability contest, like one is the bulletproof legend and the other is the risky gamble. That story is mostly wrong. A big chunk of the bad reputation one of these brands still carries comes from a hybrid system that's been dead and buried for over a decade. A system that has almost nothing to do with what they sell you today. People are scared of a ghost. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to show you exactly how each one actually works. In plain language, no engineering degree required. I'm going to show you which one really lasts using real numbers from real cars with real miles on them, not opinions. And I'm going to tell you which one is better, honestly, for what you actually want out of a car. There's one number in here that flips the whole conventional wisdom on its head. The kind of number that makes the guy at the dealership very uncomfortable. Stay with me for that part especially, because once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Let's start by killing the single biggest myth, the one that poisons every conversation about this. The myth is that a hybrid is complicated, and complicated means fragile, and fragile means it'll leave you stranded with a repair bill the size of a mortgage payment. It feels true. You've got a gas engine and an electric motor and a big battery and a computer playing referee between all of it. More parts, more to break, right? Except that's not how it plays out. And once you understand why, the whole thing clicks. A good hybrid is actually easier on its own guts than a regular gas car is. Think about what kills a normal engine. Stop and go traffic, where it idles and lugs and never gets to breathe. Cold starts, hard acceleration from a dead stop. A hybrid hands almost all of that to the electric motor. The gas engine gets to shut completely off in traffic instead of sitting there cooking. When it does run, it runs in its happy zone, a steady, efficient range, instead of getting flogged from idle to redline. And the brakes barely wear, because the car slows itself down by running the motor backwards to recharge. So the actual brake pads might last 2 or 3 times longer than you'd expect. The complexity you're afraid of is the exact thing that's protecting the parts that usually die. Hold on to that, because it's the key to this entire video. Now, both Toyota and Honda figured out the same basic idea, and it's worth saying plainly because it's the foundation under everything. The idea is this: a gasoline engine is only truly efficient in a narrow band of speeds and loads. Outside that band, it's wasteful. So if you could somehow keep the engine running only in that sweet spot and use electricity to cover everything else, the slow crawl, the launch, the coasting, you'd sip fuel instead of gulping it. Both companies build their gas engines on something called the Atkinson cycle, which, forget the name, just means the engine is tuned to squeeze more efficiency out of every drop of fuel at the cost of some low-end grunt. That lost grunt doesn't matter because the electric motor fills it in instantly. Modern versions of these engines convert around 40% of the energy in the fuel into actual motion, where a normal engine is closer to 25 or 30. That's a massive leap. So both brands agree completely on the goal. Where they part ways, and part ways hard is the mechanical trick they use to pull it off. And that's where it gets genuinely interesting. Let me walk you through the Toyota way first, because it's the older one and frankly the cleverer piece of pure engineering. Toyota's heart is a thing they call the power split device. Strip away the jargon and it's a single planetary gear set. Picture a small gear in the middle called the sun. Around it, a few little gears called planets riding in a carrier that holds them, and wrapped around the outside a ring with teeth on the inside. 3 pieces all meshed together, all able to spin. Now, here's the magic. Toyota connects the gas engine to the carrier. They connect one electric motor, the small one, to the sun gear, and they connect the second bigger electric motor to the ring, which drives the wheels. That's it. There's no clutch. There's no torque converter. There are no gears that shift, no first, second, third. Nothing slams or bangs or hunts for the right ratio. The whole transmission, the part that in a normal car is the second most expensive thing to blow up, simply doesn't exist in the form you know it. So how does it drive the car? By playing the 2 electric motors against the gas engine through that gear set. When you want to pull away gently, the big motor on the ring gear just drives the wheels on battery power and the engine stays off. When you need more, the little motor on the sun gear spins up, acts as a starter, and fires the engine. Now the engine's running, feeding power into the carrier, and here's the trick. By speeding up or slowing down that little sun gear motor, the computer changes how the engine's power gets divided. It can send engine power straight to the wheels, or bleed some off to generate electricity, or both at once. Varying the speed of that one motor effectively gives you an infinite range of gear ratios with no actual gears changing. They market it as an electronic CVT, a continuously variable transmission, but really it's this elegant little 3-way tug-of-war between an engine and 2 motors, balanced by software a few thousand times a second. The engineers who came up with this were not messing around. It's beautiful, and there's always a but, that beauty comes with a personality quirk you've definitely felt if you've ever driven one, because the engine is always physically tied to the wheels through that gear set, and because the system wants to keep the engine in its efficient zone no matter what your right foot is doing, when you floor it, the engine jumps to around 4,000 RPM and just sits there droning, holding that note while the car gradually catches up to the engine speed. Mechanics and owners call it motorboating or the rubber band effect. It sounds like the engine and the car aren't quite connected, like the throttle's made of taffy. Nothing is wrong. That's the system doing exactly what it was designed to do, prioritizing efficiency over drama. Some people never notice it. Some people can't stand it. Either way, that drone is the audible signature of the Toyota approach, and now you know precisely why it happens. On the battery side, Toyota spent decades, and I mean decades, using nickel metal hydride batteries, the older chemistry, in the vast majority of their hybrids, all the way through about 2015. people sneered at it as outdated. Toyota didn't care because the stuff was absurdly durable and they understood it cold. Only recently have they moved the newer cars over to lithium ion, which holds more energy in less space. The current Prius, redesigned for 2023, finally got a lithium pack and a bigger 2-liter engine, and that car now makes a genuinely respectable 194 horsepower, with the plug-in version pushing 220. The days of the Prius being a punchline for being slow are basically over. Now let's cross the aisle and look at how Honda does it, because it's almost the philosophical opposite. And this is the part most people have completely wrong. Honda's current system, branded EHEV, uses 2 electric motors and critically no planetary gear set at all. Here's how it actually behaves in the real world. Most of the time, in the city, around town, in traffic, the gas engine is not connected to the wheels. Let me say that again because it's the whole point. The engine is mechanically disconnected. What it's doing instead is spinning a generator, making electricity, and that electricity feeds the second motor, the big one, which is what actually drives the wheels. So in stop and go driving, a Honda EHV is essentially an electric car that happens to carry its own little gasoline generator on board. The engine's just a power source humming away in the background. It never touches the wheels. So when does the engine connect? Only on the highway, when you're cruising at a steady, higher speed, which is exactly the condition where a gas engine is most efficient and an electric drive starts to get wasteful. A single clutch snaps shut and locks the engine directly to the wheels in one fixed gear ratio. Just one. Think of it as permanent top gear. No multi-speed gearbox, just a clutch that's either open with the engine acting as a generator or closed with the engine driving the wheels directly. On the newer CR-V, they actually added a second clutch so it can do that direct lockup across a wider range of speeds, but the core idea holds. It's a brilliantly simple concept. 2 modes, generator in town, direct drive on the highway, and the computer slides between them so smoothly you usually can't feel it. Because the engine spends most of its life decoupled from the wheels, the Honda feels different to drive, and most people who pay attention prefer it. There's no rubber band drone in city driving because the engine speed isn't tied to your road speed at all. You get that clean, quiet, instant electric shove off the line. It feels more like a proper EV more of the time. Honda even added a feature that makes the engine rev up and back down in steps as you accelerate, faking the sensation of a normal transmission, shifting through gears just so the car feels familiar and connected. They call the latest version S Plus Shift. Now, I'll be honest with you, here's where I have to undercut my own enthusiasm a little, because honest is better than impressive. Those fake shifts are exactly that. Fake. There are no gears changing. It's theater. And some enthusiasts who love the older, purer Honda hybrids think the simulated shifting is a step backward, a gimmick papering over the fact that mechanically nothing is happening. I'm sympathetic to that, but I'll also say the fake shifts genuinely do make the car more pleasant for most drivers, and the engineering underneath is sound. You decide whether you want your car to be honest about what it is or to put on a little show. There's no wrong answer. Now we get to the part that everyone gets wrong, the reputation, and I need you to follow this carefully because it's where the real money and the real myths live. If you ask the average person on the street, they'll tell you Toyota hybrids are bulletproof and Honda hybrids are a question mark. And that reputation is real, but it didn't come from the cars Honda sells now. It came from a completely different system Honda used years ago called Integrated Motor Assist. IMA for short. The old IMA was a much simpler, weaker setup, just one thin electric motor sandwiched against the engine to give it a little push. It could not drive the car on electricity alone. And in the Honda Civic Hybrid from roughly 2003 through 2009, the batteries in that system developed a nasty habit of wearing out early. Owners got sluggish performance, warning lights, cars that couldn't pull up a hill the way they used to. And then Honda did something that to this day people are still angry about. Around 2010, they pushed a software update to about 90,000 of those Civic hybrids. The update was meant to protect the failing batteries by leaning on them less. The result, it made the cars slower and dropped their fuel economy, the exact two things people bought the hybrid for in the first place. It set off class action lawsuits, one for misleading mileage claims and one over that performance-killing update. Honda settled, and here's the insult that stuck in people's throats. The typical owner got a check for about $100, maybe $200 if you qualified for the battery part, plus a coupon toward buying another Honda. Meanwhile, the battery those owners were dealing with cost a couple $1,000s to actually replace. That whole episode, that's the source of the cloud that still hangs over Honda hybrids. A weak system, a botched fix, and a settlement that felt like a slap. People remember the burn. What they don't realize is that Honda threw that entire approach in the garbage. The two-motor system they sell today shares essentially nothing with old IMA. It's a clean sheet design, and judging it by the Civic Hybrid of 2006 is like judging a modern smartphone by a flip phone. Same company, completely different machine. So let's drop the reputations and the ghosts and look at cold, hard, real-world durability data, because this is what actually matters when you're spending your money. There's a firm called iSeeCars that crunches data from hundreds of millions of vehicles to estimate how long a given model actually survives on the road and how likely it is to clear 200,000 miles. The Toyota Prius is deservedly near the top of the entire industry. Their data pegs the Prius hatchback at an average lifespan around 170,000 miles, with roughly a 30% chance of any given one reaching 200,000. It's ranked the single most reliable hybrid they track. The real-world stories back it up. Prius taxis routinely rack up 300,000, 400,000 miles on their original battery packs. Somewhere around 1 in 8 Priuses on the road has crossed 250,000 miles. The highest mileage example anybody's documented, a 2017, is sitting at over 540,000 miles and still running. That is a genuinely staggering record, and Toyota earned every bit of it. Now, here's the number I told you to wait for. That same data firm looked at the current Honda Accord hybrid, and the Accord hybrid's predicted average lifespan came out to about 180,000 miles with a 36, almost 37% chance of hitting 200,000. Read that again. On paper, by this measure, the modern Honda hybrid sedan scores higher than the Prius hatchback. Longer average life, better odds of going the distance. The car that supposedly carries the question mark quietly out, lasting the car everyone calls the bulletproof legend. And it gets better for Honda because that hybrid Accord actually scores higher than the regular gasoline Accord 2, which only has about a 26% shot at 200,000. The hybrid version of the car is the more durable version of the car. So much for complicated meaning, fragile. I'm not telling you this to crown Honda because there's important context coming. I'm telling you because the lazy advice, just buy the Toyota, the Honda will break, is not supported by the numbers on current cars. It's supported by a memory of a system that doesn't exist anymore. Here's the honest context, though, the part a fair person has to add. Toyota's track record is deeper and wider. They've been doing this since 1997 across millions and millions of cars in brutal taxi and rideshare fleets across the Prius and the Camry and the RAV4 and the Highlander, and the proof of 300,000 mile survival is just everywhere. Honda's two-motor system, as good as the data looks, simply hasn't been on the road as long and as many vehicles. So there's less of that deep decade after decade evidence. When you buy the Toyota, you're buying the most thoroughly proven hybrid drivetrain in human history. When you buy the modern Honda, you're buying something that, by every early indication, is just as durable and arguably a nicer place to spend your commute, but with a shorter paper trail behind it. Both are genuinely excellent. Neither is a gamble. And what about that battery? The thing everyone's terrified of, the supposed $8,000 time bomb waiting to detonate at 100,000 miles? Let me put it to rest. Back in the early days, a Prius pack really could cost something, close to $10,000, and that scared a generation of buyers half to death. Today, a replacement pack for a Prius typically runs around $2,000 to $2,500, and the thriving aftermarket of rebuilt and brand new packs will often do it for $1,500 to $3,000. Honda's about the same, roughly $2,000 plus labor. And these packs routinely last 150,000, 200,000 miles or more before they need it. I've seen owner after owner with a 2015 Accord hybrid sitting at nearly 300,000 miles on the original battery, still pulling 40 plus miles a gallon. Both companies were confident enough to extend their battery warranties to 10 years and 150,000 miles in recent years, up from 8 and 100,000. Companies do not hand out warranties like that on parts they expect to fail. The time bomb is a dud. Let me show you a couple more things, the little details that round out the picture and that almost nobody mentions. First, a quirk of the Honda system, because the engine usually isn't connected to the wheels and there's no old-fashioned alternator. The regular 12-volt battery, the little one that runs your lights and radio, gets charged off the big hybrid pack. So if that hybrid pack ever truly dies, the car won't just lose its electric boost, it can refuse to run at all. The good news is these packs almost always warn you with a light and degrading performance long before they quit, so you're not getting stranded out of nowhere. Second, on the fuel economy front, since I know you're wondering who actually sips less gas, is basically a tie, and that surprises people. The current Toyota Corolla hybrid gets around 50 miles a gallon combined. The Camry hybrid about 51, with a healthy 225 horsepower and standard hybrid power across the whole lineup now. Honda's Civic hybrid lands around 49, the Accord hybrid around 48. We are arguing over 1 or 2 miles a gallon between rivals. At that level, your right foot and the weather matter more than the badge. The Honda counters with quickness. The Civic Hybrid will hit 60 miles an hour in a little over 6 seconds, properly fast, where the Corolla is a far more relaxed 9 and change. And maintenance costs between the two brands are within a few dollars a year of each other. This is not a blowout. This is two heavyweights trading even punches. Fairness cuts both ways. So a word on the Toyota side's gremlins, because no car is perfect. The third generation Prius, the 2010 through 2015 cars, can clog up an emissions part called the EGR system, especially if it only ever gets driven on short trips, causing rough running, and a cleaning runs a few $100s. The second generation cars before that had a coolant pump for the inverter that could fail. And if you ignored it, it could cook the inverter into a multi-$1,000 repair. These are known, documented, manageable. Every car family has its short list. The point isn't that one brand is flawless. The point is that both of these are, by the standards of modern cars, remarkably trouble-free. So now step back with me, because here's the part that actually matters, the part underneath the whole comparison. Why does the time bomb battery myth refuse to die when the real numbers have been clear for years? Follow the money like always. Fear is profitable. A scared buyer is a buyer who pays for the extended warranty they'll probably never use. A scared buyer is one more reason a dealer can knock thousands off a perfectly good used hybrid on the trade-in, calling it a risk, and then sell it to the next person at full price, calling it a steal. The story that hybrids are ticking financial time bombs has a lot of quiet beneficiaries, and almost none of them are the person actually driving the car. There's very little money in telling you the truth, which is that the battery will probably outlast your interest in the car and cost about as much as a decent set of tires and a timing job if it ever does go. There's a great deal of money in keeping you nervous. And there's a deeper truth, the one I find genuinely interesting and a little bittersweet. Everything good about these cars, the longevity, the low brake wear, the engine that refuses to die, comes from the engine doing less, not more. The very electric complexity people are afraid of is the thing wrapping the gas engine in bubble wrap, letting it shut off, keeping it in its easy zone, sparing it the punishment that grinds an ordinary car down. The thing you've been taught to fear is the thing protecting you, but I won't pretend it's all gain with no cost, because that wouldn't be honest either. We did trade something away. You and I, in our own driveway, with a normal set of tools, can't really get into these the way our predecessors got into a carbureted engine on a Saturday morning. There's high voltage in there that'll genuinely hurt you. The packs are sealed. The diagnostics speak a language only the dealer's computer fully understands. These cars last a long, long time, but they've quietly moved one more step into the world of the sealed box, the machine you're meant to use and trust and never open. That's not a conspiracy. Nobody twirled a mustache in a boardroom. It's just the slow drift of how things get built now, a little more closed off with each generation, and it's worth noticing even when the thing inside the box happens to be excellent. Because here's what I keep coming back to. We've been handed two genuinely brilliant, genuinely different answers to the exact same engineering problem. Toyota solved it with a gear set so clever it has no gears to shift and almost nothing to wear out. Honda solved it by turning the engine into a part-time generator that only bothered to touch the wheels when it's actually worth it. Two honest pieces of engineering, both of them good, both of them built to last longer than almost anything else on the road. And the way they get sold to us is as a tribal war, a my team versus your team brawl in the comments, when the truth is you're not choosing between a good one and a bad one at all. You're choosing between two different philosophies, and the only real question is which one fits the way you actually live. There's a quiet satisfaction in understanding that, in walking into the showroom, knowing exactly what each car is doing under the floor, immune to the pitch from either side. So here's what I want you to take away plainly. If what you want above all is the deepest, most proven track record on earth, the best resale value, and the comfort of knowing 1 million owners before you took the same drivetrain past 300,000 miles, you buy the Toyota and you do it with total confidence. If what you want is a quieter, smoother, noticeably quicker drive that feels more like an electric car most of the time, and you're comfortable with a track record that's shorter but by every early number we have just as durable, you buy the Honda, and you do that with confidence too. On fuel economy, call it a draw and stop worrying about it. On reliability, understand that both will very likely sail past 200,000 miles with nothing more than oil, tires, and basic care. And on that battery, the one that kept you up at night, relax. It's the most overfeared part of the whole machine. Picture it. A few years from now, you're the one at a dinner table when somebody repeats the old line about hybrid batteries bankrupting people at 100,000 miles. And you just smile because you know the real number and you know where the fear comes from. And you know that the car in your driveway is going to quietly outlive the argument. You're not buying a badge or a reputation or a ghost story. You're buying a machine you finally understand. That's worth more than any brochure. Tell me in the comments which one you actually drive and how many miles are on it right now, and whether that battery has given you a single moment of trouble. I especially want to hear from the high mileage folks, the taxi drivers, the people who've crossed 200,000 and 300,000 miles, because your odometer is worth more than 100 glossy reviews. Tell me where you are in the world too and what the climate's like, because heat is the one thing these batteries genuinely don't love. And I'm curious how that shakes out across different places. I read every single one of these. The stories you send are the whole reason I keep digging into this stuff. If you got something out of this, subscribe and stick around, because next time I want to pull the thread on something that's been bugging me for years, something that lives right inside this same world of sealed boxes you're not supposed to open. They've started telling you the fluids in your car are lifetime fluids. Lifetime. The transmission fluid, the coolant, sometimes the stuff in the differential, all of it supposedly sealed and good forever. Never check it, never change it. And I'm going to show you exactly whose lifetime they're really talking about and why that one little word on the maintenance schedule might be the most expensive thing ever written in a manual. Until then, do me a favor. Trust the machine. Just don't trust the story they wrap around it.